Well, the foreign aid package debate was finally settled, at least in the House of Representatives. And as we've been covering, this is cause for rage among MAGA against Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, specifically when it comes to Ukraine. People like who we're going to talk about in this segment, Marjorie Taylor Greene, have this unjustified, hard to understand, and visceral hatred for the idea of supporting Ukraine. And in explaining their stance on that, they deploy a bunch of really dishonest pro-Putin talking points that we'll discuss in this segment. But luckily, we had a chance to see Democratic Congressman Adam Smith during the debate over Ukraine aid specifically call out Marjorie Taylor Greene right after one of her deranged speeches. My goodness, you're about to see what I'm referring to. And I emphasize that because I've been discussing Marjorie Taylor Greene since she got into politics, and she was always super detached from reality and very unhinged. But lately, the energy coming from her is concerning. She's genuinely unhinged and seemingly unwell, and you can observe that for yourself in this clip. Again, the subject of aid to Ukraine being discussed. I'll get into some of the talking points you hear her use after watching this clip.
For nothing. Ukraine is not even a member of NATO. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. But the most important thing you hear in Washington, D.C. is, oh, we have to spend Americans' hard-earned tax dollars over to Ukraine and keep the money going to continue to murder Ukrainians, wipe out an entire generation of Ukrainian men so that their widows, their fathers.
And I know some of you are probably considering turning this off just because the rage coming from her and the dishonesty is hard to listen to. We're just a few seconds away from a Democrat adding a lot more reason to this conversation.
Orphans, there are not enough men to work in their industries. Oh, but you really support Ukraine. Wow, what kind of support is that? It's repulsive. You know, shame on the American government.
2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to focus on one argument of the sponsor of this amendment, who's basically saying that if we pass this bill, we are advocating the killing of Ukrainians. That is a uniquely demented way of looking at this war. Putin invades. Putin, as we speak, is bombing and killing Ukrainian civilians. And the only thing that is reducing the number that he can kill is the Ukrainians' ability to fight back. So to look at this from a pure Russian propaganda standpoint, they invade, they bomb, they kill, and it's our fault for helping the Ukrainians defend themselves. That is the argument here against supporting Ukraine, and it literally makes no sense. If you want peace, give the Ukrainians the strength to stop Putin. He is the one that will not come to the bargaining table right now because he thinks he's winning. He thinks he can go all the way to Kyiv. He thinks he can take the whole country. If we give the Ukrainians the ability to stop him, that forces him to the table. It makes no sense to say that giving the Ukrainians the ability to defend themselves is what's killing them, when it is very clearly the Russians that are killing them. And I would also note that no president has added more to the deficit in one 4-year, or the debt, sorry, in one 4-year term than President Trump. And I didn't hear a single Republican
Yeah, and getting into that hypocrisy, I have much more to play for you. We will get into Jasmine Crockett, another Democratic Congresswoman, calling out Marjorie Greene, a press conference Marjorie Greene held. But first, to respond to that, I do always find it important to caveat that no one's saying that the term he used was demented to describe the argument being made from Marjorie Taylor Greene, which I think is a fair word to use. No one's accusing you of that. If you have some questions about how are we delivering this aid, what type of aid is it, should be giving this much or that much, or how long are we committed to doing this or that, we can have good faith discussions about that. I can explain to you why I think we should be giving more. You can want maybe a little more, a lot more, and we can, again, have those sorts of good faith discussions. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a part of that conversation, and that's not what she's advocating on behalf of, a sort of reasonable discussion. Instead, she's just pushing openly pro-Putin and dishonest, detached from reality talking points. And so with that in mind, that caveat in mind, as Adam Smith pointed out there, it is so incredibly dishonest to act like giving aid to Ukraine is the funding of a continuation of a war, when if you have just basic critical thinking skills, you can understand that if Putin is the one, if Russia is the one that invaded, So they prompted this war. Then how on earth does it make sense to say giving aid to the defender, to the one defending themselves, is continuing the war? When obviously if Ukraine were to be weaker in this situation, Russia would be more motivated to do more. If right now they're wanting to invade while we're supporting Ukraine, think about how excited they would be in enacting these horrific ambitions if they heard that Ukraine would be getting less support and would be less able to defend itself. I do also think it's strange that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't really have a problem with billions of dollars being spent by the United States to further our national security interests until right now. Now they have a problem with it because for decades now, we've spent billions to geopolitically position ourselves advantageously compared to our adversaries like Russia. And nothing does that more efficiently, dollar for dollar, than giving Ukraine aid and stopping Russia in its tracks and weakening them amid this attempt. Before I get into anything else, here is a Fox News correspondent fact-checking the idea that a lot of this is also premised on, which is we're just sort of giving money and then they can spend it however they want. We're just shoving money and we don't know where it's going. And you'll hear a lot of times people saying that we have no idea where these billions of dollars are going. Very incorrect. And actually, often this is really economically stimulative investments.
Cutting a check for $60 billion to Ukraine. A study by AEI shows that 90% of the $68 billion the U.S. has already sent to Ukraine supports weapons factories here in the U.S. Abrams tanks and Stryker vehicles are made in Lima, Ohio. They identified 117 production lines, weapons production lines, in 31 U.S. states that are producing weapons for Ukraine, which means U.S. jobs, of course. Javelin anti-tank missiles are built in Troy, Alabama, and Tucson, Arizona. Howitzers are built in Minneapolis. The Switchblade drones used in Ukraine are made in Forest, Mississippi, and York, Pennsylvania. I could go on.
So very different than the talking point of we have no idea where this money's going. It could be just getting spent on absolutely anything in Ukraine. We know where it's going, and it often is stimulating American industries. Now, it's not to say that inherently it's good when money goes to, for example, weapons manufacturers. That's where you get into the risk of the military industrial complex as people talk about messing with foreign policy decisions. In this case, the reason why we're spending that money is going toward an absolutely justified cause. And so then it is a win-win situation. If it were going to an unjustified cause, that's when you get a little questionable about the purpose of some of these investments. But right now, it's in the interest of peace to be giving this sort of aid to Ukraine and them stopping Russia in their tracks. Then here is Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving. Now that this aid has been passed, she is likely to revolt further against Mike Johnson. And here was her post-vote press conference.
Constituents, but will you ever? But I mean, given what you said, do Republicans deserve to be in the majority?
That's up to the people, because this is the third betrayal by Mike Johnson. He delivered a two-part omnibus, funded the Department of Justice, 91 federal indictments against President Trump, funded the FBI that raided Mar-a-Lago, gave him a brand new FBI building, funded Joe Biden's open border policies that are killing Americans every single day. Then he reauthorized FISA.
By the way, while you're watching this, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel by just clicking that subscribe button. Helps us grow the show.
Spied on American citizens, spied on President Trump's campaign, and he voted against the warrant requirement, the same warrant requirement that he was for 6 months ago. And then he did this bullshit in here on the House floor, foreign war package that does nothing for America. It's unbelievable. I'm thankful that America gets to see who this man is. I'm thankful that America gets to see who the people that voted for this is, because this is only.
Yeah, so looks like she's likely going to proceed with trying to oust Mike Johnson. And before getting to Jasmine Crockett's thoughts on Marjorie Taylor Greene amid all of this, I do want to address a core talking point that we hear from MAGA quite often. Before getting to that, because she listed off all the things, I've already gone through so many times now her list of reasons that she's really mad about funding the DOJ and the FBI and how she wants to defund the police, federal police, the law enforcement that she feels wronging Donald Trump, and then her talking points about the border and all that stuff. We've already gone over that so many times. Really dishonest. And she keeps saying 91 indictments. No wonder they think Trump's being targeted. 91 indictments. My goodness. Obviously, it's 4, referring to the felony counts, I guess, there. But the idea that a lot of times is used to justify being against giving aid to Ukraine is the idea that we should be spending that money in America. We should be spending it on Americans. And as I just talked to you about, a lot of that money is going to American companies, but that's different than programs that directly benefit those who are in need. Now, the important response to that is, yeah, we want to do both. Do you know who's preventing us from doing the investments in American programs? You, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you and your ilk. Y'all are constantly the ones who are voting against the very programs that then you turn around and say we should be investing more in those instead of getting aid to Ukraine. Crazy. You're the one who doesn't want us to be investing in American infrastructure, in projects that will bring wealth and jobs to communities and improve people's communities. You're the ones who are voting against lowering Americans' prescription drug costs. You're the ones who are constantly trying to cut entitlements. You're the ones who are constantly trying to cut SNAP benefits, for example. You're the ones who are against expanding healthcare coverage for people, and we could go on. And so then to point to the fact that we're not properly investing in the things that you won't let us properly invest in as reason that we shouldn't be doing something that's in the interest of the Ukrainian defense of themselves and in our national security interest is absurd. Here's Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
But Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that we need to fund the border, well, she needs to go talk to her master, aka Donald Trump, who specifically said, do not go through with the border bill. And that's the only reason they don't have anything. So if she has a problem, she needs to go talk to Donald instead of blaming her speaker. And all, but Marjorie Taylor.
Yeah, and that's the talking point that causes me more anger than most, which is we can't do anything else until we secure the border. But we're preventing the border legislation that's endorsed by the Border Patrol Union explicitly because we don't want to give Joe Biden a political win. This is a group of people that is more dishonest than I thought that you could be in this world. Here's more from Jasmine Crockett.
And also, she's talking really big talk about how she believes in governance. And so that's why she wants to be responsible, because she cares about the institution. She didn't care about the institution on January 6th or even after January 6th, as she continues to support those that were trying to tear us down. So I don't really have much patience for Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has done everything that is the opposite of anything that will keep this country on track. I really hope that her district is paying attention and they decide to pick someone else.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate when it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene's opposition to supporting Ukraine, because that's at the center of this latest round of rage towards Mike Johnson and just generally being espoused publicly. It is pretty, as Adam Smith said, demented, disturbing, vile to use the fact and try to cite the fact that Ukrainians are being slaughtered. And as I'm saying this, I'm just, being overcome with how disgusting this is. To then use that to justify advocating in the interest of policies that would cause more of that. She's acting like she's trying to prevent that by saying that Russia should be emboldened to do more. That's what that argument is. And that's stunning and sickening. And unfortunately, her district's not going to vote her out. Sad. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.